Good morning, everyone. In the last class, we discussed about what is Spring Data JPA and why we need to go for Spring Data JPA. In the Spring Data JPA, we understood several concepts like what is a CRUD repository, what is JPA repository, how to work with find by methods, how to work with custom queries also. I have given two assignments here, guys. First one is how to create, update, delete records using custom query concept. That is the first assignment. Are you guys able to do that? What is the option for that? Create option is not supported by data JPA directly. You can't insert the record directly by using create query. So if you want to work with this requirement, which method is having a custom query, for that method you need to use @modifying and you need to use @transactional annotations. Then only you can perform custom query execution by using data JPA. The next one, I have given one more assignment, retrieve employees based on country and gender using OR clause. Country and gender using OR clause. All right. So for this, you need to use a concept called specification concept. So we discussed about query by example. With the query by example, you cannot perform this operation. If you want to retrieve the employees based on country and gender using OR clause, then you need to use a concept called JPA specification concept. What is the concept, guys? JPA specification concept we need to use. Then only we can perform operation by using OR clause. All right. These are the two assignments I have given. So do some research on that. Anyhow, all the JPA concepts, whatever we have learned, again, we are going to implement them along with our web application development. So in the web application, UI pages will be available. We need to capture the form data. We need to insert in the table. We need to retrieve the records from the table. We need to display in the UI. We need to edit the record. We need to update the record and we need to delete the record. So those operations, once again, we are going to perform with the web MVC. Data JPA, 50% only we have completed. The remaining 50% of the data JPA, we are going to learn along with the web MVC concept. Because if you learn all the concepts of the JPA also, you will not get 100% clarity. The reason we are developing only standalone applications by using data JPA. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Fine. Online students, please confirm. Is my voice clear for everyone? Please respond in the chat box. Is my voice clear? Any difference from previous class and this class audio? Any difference is there? Yeah, very good. Next one. From today onwards, we are going to learn a new module that is called Spring Web MVC module. So from today onwards, we are going to learn Spring Web MVC module. Sir, what is the purpose of this Web MVC and how we are going to work with the Web MVC? So first of all, this is Spring Web MVC, one of the most used module in Spring Framework. So Spring Framework contains several modules like core module, context module, AOP module, JDBC module, ORM module, WebMVC, security, data JPA, cloud. Like that, there are several modules available. So like that, there is one module called Spring WebMVC module that is one of the most used module in the Spring Framework. And what we are going to do by using this Web MVC module, using Spring Web MVC, we can develop two types of applications, guys. By using Spring Web MVC module, we can develop two types of applications. What are those two types of applications? First one, we can develop web applications. So when I say web application, that is containing some UI. Okay. User interface also will be available in our project. These applications are used for customer to business communication. So one customer is available. They want to communicate with our business. For that, they are going to use one website. So you can develop a web application with the user interface by using WebMVC module. And second thing, by using this WebMVC only, we can develop distributed applications also. I mean to say web services. So these web services are used for B2B communication. So by using WebMVC, we can develop two types of applications. What are those two types of applications? First one is web application. Second one is distributed application. So distributed applications are nothing but web services. REST APIs we are going to develop by using WebMVC module. So what is Spring WebMVC? Spring WebMVC is one of the most used module in the Spring framework. Using this WebMVC, we can develop two types of applications. One is web application. Second one is distributed application. Web applications are used for customer to business. What is the main purpose of web application? Web applications are used for customer to business communication. Customer to business communication we can perform by using web application. Example, our website is available. Okay, so you want to see what all the new courses in the Ashok IT website. You are getting the backup videos. You are getting the class notes. Okay, so all these things you can access by using our website, which is a web application. Then, so in the web application, we are going to implement UI also. In web application, user interface also will be available. Business logic will be available. Database access logic will be available. User interface also will be available. In web application, we will have three components, guys. In the web application, we will have three components. One is presentation component will be available. And next one, business logic will be available. Business components will be available. Third one, data access components also will be available. So presentation components will be available. Business components will be available. And data access components also will be available. When I say data access components, communicating with the database. How to communicate with the database? Data JPA. Spring WebMVC plus Spring Data JPA combination we are going to use to develop a web application. Are you clear with my point? So what is Spring WebMVC, guys? What is Spring WebMVC? One of the most used and important module. One of the most used and important module in the Spring framework is called as WebMVC module. What we can do by using this WebMVC module? What we are going to do by using WebMVC module? By using this WebMVC module, we can develop two types of applications, guys. We can develop two types of applications. What are those two types of applications? One is web application and the second one is distributed application. What is the meaning of web application? Web applications are used for customer to business communication. If an end user want to communicate with our website, want to communicate with our business, then we are going to develop web application. In the web application, three components will be available. What are those three components in the web application? Presentation components will be available. Business components will be available. Data access components also will be available. Presentation components, nothing but UI. UI will be available. Business components, when I say here, controllers will be available and services will be available. Controllers are going to take the request and the service will execute the business logic. Controller will give the response back to the UI. And data access components will be available. Nothing but repositories will be available. What is the meaning of repository? What is the meaning of repository? Repository is used to communicate with the database. Repositories are used to communicate with the database. Okay, fine. Next one, here to develop the presentation, to develop UI, we can use JSP, we can use timing. We can use JSP and time leaf to develop presentation components, nothing but UI components. In Spring Web MVC, we can use JSP and time leaf, but both are outdated. People are using JSP in the real time. Time leaf, no. People are using Angular, React for the presentation. But if you want to develop a complete web application only with the Spring framework, then you can go with the WebMVC module. WebMVC supports JSP for the presentation as well as it will support Timeleaf also for the presentation. They support, but today people are not using. People are developing full stack. Front end separate, back end separate. Back end we will develop by using Spring Boot. Front end we will develop by using Angular or React. Okay. So I hope you got the clarity. What is a customer to business and what is web application? Web applications are used for customer to business communication. In web application, 3 components will be available. Presentation components will be available. Business components will be available. Data access components will be available. To develop the presentation components in the Spring Web MVC application, we can use JSP and Timeleaf. Any one you can use, but both are not recommended. That is a different story. Okay, coming to what is distributed application. Next one, what is distributed application? Can anyone tell me what is a distributed application? Distributed applications are called as web services. Distributed applications are called as web services. Distributed applications are called as web services. They're called as web services. So web services are used to communicate from one application to another application. Web services are used to communicate from one application to another application. If you want to communicate from one application to another application, then you can use distributed application. So in the distributed applications, user interface will not be available. They are only back-end application. Front-end is separate, back-end is separate. So in the distributed applications, UI will not be available. In the web services, UI will not be available. Directly, backend applications we are going to develop. Backend REST APIs we are going to develop. Front-end Angular will communicate with our backend application. Front-end React application will communicate with our backend application. So by using WebMVC, it depends on your requirement. You can develop web applications as well as you can develop distributed applications also. Currently, which application is having more demand in the market? B2B applications are having more demand in the market. So UI will be separate, backend will be separate. By using WebMVC, you can develop both web applications as well as you can develop distributed applications also. Are you able to follow me? So for 1 week, we are going to learn web application development. Then after 20 to 30 days, we are going to learn distributed application development. So most important part in the course, distributed applications development. So in the Spring Boot, people are using Spring Boot to develop REST APIs in the market. Backend applications we are going to develop by using Spring Boot. That's why for the web application development, we'll spend only 1 week to 10 days of time. The remaining 20 days to 30 days of time, we are going to spend on the distributed applications development. Are you guys able to follow me? Yes, come on. What is WebMVC? What we can do by using WebMVC? Come on. What is WebMVC and what we can do by using WebMVC? WebMVC is one of the most important module available in the Spring framework. What we can do by using WebMVC? We can develop 2 types of applications by using WebMVC. What are those 2 types? One is web application development. Second one is distributed application development. Web applications are used for customer to business communication. Okay, UI will be available. Distributed applications are used for business to business communication. One project is going to communicate with the another project. Now, in order to develop any project by using WebMVC, first we need to understand Spring WebMVC architecture, guys. Okay, if you want to develop a project by using WebMVC, you need to understand the architecture of the Spring WebMVC. Okay, in this architecture, mainly there is a concept called dispatcher servlet. Okay, the WebMVC will work based on the servlets only. You learned the servlets in the JEE, right? So the Spring WebMVC is using that servlet concept only in the backend. So if you want to develop a web application, or if you want to develop a distributed application, first we need to understand what is MVC architecture. Okay, in the MVC architecture, there is a concept called dispatcher servlet. Then next concept is handler mapper. Handler mapper. Then third component we can say controller, or we can also call it as a request handler. Controller, request handler will be available. And fourth one, model and view. Model and view will be available. And the fifth one, view resolver will be available. And the sixth one, view component will be available. If you understand these 6 topics, then only you can develop web application by using WebMVC. Okay, so now I am not talking about distributed application. For the next 10 days, what is our focus? For next at least 1 week, what is our focus? Web application development. So distributed application, that is the next part. REST API development is the next part. So currently we are going to work on web application development by using WebMVC. So if you want to develop a web application by using WebMVC, then we need to understand these components, guys. What are these components? One is dispatcher servlet. Second one is handler mapper. Third one is controller. Fourth one is model and view. Fifth one is view resolver. Sixth one is view component. So these components are part of WebMVC architecture. To develop a web application, you need to understand these 6 concepts. All right. Now, let us look at some diagram. WebMVC architecture diagram in the internet. To understand this architecture components, let us look at Spring WebMVC architecture. Spring WebMVC architecture diagram. Yes. So here you can see the architecture diagram. Let me take this image. Yes. Look at the diagram. Whatever I have told, all the components are available. Can you read the components here? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapping, controller, model and view, view resolver, view component. Just observe the diagram for 1 minute and see the numbers also. From 1 to 10, the flow is available. 1 to 10, the flow is available. Just observe that components. This is called WebMVC architecture diagram. WebMVC architecture diagram. This contains dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, view resolver, view component. Like this, multiple components involved in our WebMVC architecture. Dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, view component. Can you read the names again? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, view and model and view, view resolver, view. The order is also important, guys. They have given the numbers, right? The ordering is also very important to understand MVC architecture. Now, can you tell me once again? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, view component. Once again, dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, view. So total there are 6 components are available. Spring Web MVC will work based on these 6 components only. If you understand these 6 components, then only you can develop a web application by using Spring Web MVC. Now, so let us see what is the purpose of these 6 components, guys. What is the purpose of these 6 components? Whenever we are developing our application, right? In our application, multiple Java classes will be available. Okay. When I say multiple Java classes, here we will be having one login controller to handle login functionality in our application. Login controller will be available. Login controller will be available. Then similarly, we will be having registration controller, and we will have some book controller. We will have some product controller. Like this, multiple controller classes will be available in our application. Controllers are nothing but your servlets only. Controllers are nothing but your servlet. They will take the request, they will process, they will send the response. Okay. So when you click on the login button, request will go to one controller. Take your form data, validate, and send the response. So in your project, multiple controller classes will be available. Now, when we have the Spring Web MVC application, when user performs some operation in the application, when user perform some operation in the application, first a request will come. The number one, when you perform some operation, one request will come to our application. So who is taking our request? Dispatcher servlet is a security guard for our application. Dispatcher servlet is called as a front controller. Every request which is coming to our application will be received by dispatcher servlet. It is the main entry point for the web application. When you develop a web application, when user performs some operation in the web application, then that request will come to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet is the front controller of our web application. Whether it is a web application, whether it is a distributed application, we are going to use dispatcher servlet is a front controller, and that is predefined class in the web MVC. You no need to develop that. Already it is available in the web MVC. It will take your request and it will process your request. Are you getting my point? So can you tell me what is a dispatcher servlet in the Spring Web MVC? Dispatcher servlet is a predefined class which is called as front controller. Which is called as front controller. This is also called as framework class. It is a framework servlet class. So it is predefined class in the Spring Web MVC. It is predefined class in Spring Web MVC. It acts as front controller. It is predefined class in the Spring Web MVC. It acts as front controller. It is responsible to receive the request, and send the response. Who is going to take our request and who will give the response to us? Dispatcher servlet. Can you tell me what is the dispatcher servlet? Dispatcher servlet is a predefined class available in the Spring Web MVC, and this dispatcher servlet will act as front controller. And what is the responsibility of the dispatcher servlet? It is the responsible to receive the request and send the response to the client. Send the response to the client. Note, it is also called as framework servlet class. It is also called as framework servlet class. It is provided by Spring WebMVC module, that is a predefined class. It is acting as a front controller. It is responsible to receive the request and send the response to the client. This is also called as framework servlet. Also called as framework servlet. Are you clear with my point? Okay, good. Next one, when the request is received by dispatcher servlet, okay, then dispatcher servlet don't know which class to execute. So in our project, multiple classes available. When you click login button, login class should execute. When you click registration button, registration class should execute. But dispatcher servlet will take the request. But the dispatcher servlet don't know which class is responsible to handle the request. That's why immediately dispatcher servlet will talk to a person called handler mapper. Dispatcher servlet will talk to a person called handler mapper. Now you see number one, request is coming. What is number two? Dispatcher servlet is talking to handler mapping. What is a handler mapping? Handler mapping is responsible to identify this request should be processed by which class in the project. So in the project, multiple classes available. Login controller, registration controller, book controller, product controller, employee controller, address controller, dashboard controller, logout controller. Hundreds of classes we are going to develop. Which request should be handled by which controller will identified by handler mapper. Now, my login controller will have like this. Whenever a request comes with the URL as /login, that should go to login controller. Whenever a request comes with the URL /register, go to registration controller. When the request comes with the /product, product controller. When request comes with the /book, go to book controller. For every controller, URL patterns will be available. So when you click on some option in the web application, your request will go to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will go to handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify what is the request URL, which class is responsible to handle that request. So basically, dispatcher servlet will give the request to handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify this request should be taken care by which controller in the project. So which controller should process the request will identified by handler mapper. Are you guys able to follow me? Yeah, tell me, what is a dispatcher servlet and what is a handler mapper? Dispatcher servlet is a predefined class. What is the purpose of that? It is a front controller. It is a front controller. What is the responsibility of that? Take the request, send the response. But once it take the request, does it know which class should execute? No. What it will do? It will talk to handler mapper. What is that handler mapper? Handler mapper is also a predefined class. Handler mapper is also a predefined class. What is the responsibility of the handler mapper? It identify which request should be taken care by which controller based on the URL pattern. Now, let's go to one web application. Okay. Now, Ashoka ID website. So in this website, there are multiple buttons available. Now, when you click on, so suppose initially, can you see in the website URL, currently nothing is available. Home page is there. When you click on contact us, then what is happening? Contact us, URL modified. Based on that URL, I'm getting some page as a response. So when you go for about us, then what is happening? URL is changed or URL got changed. That means based on the URL pattern, some class is executing in the background and it is giving the response for us. So who is identifying that? handler mapper. Based on the URL pattern, handler mapper will identify this request should be handled by which controller class in the project. Project will have only one controller or projects will have multiple controllers. Projects will have multiple controllers. Okay, good. So now what is handler mapper? What is handler mapper? It is a predefined class in the Spring Web MVC. What is handler mapper? This is also predefined class in the Spring Web MVC. It is responsible to identify controller class to handle the request based on URL pattern. For every servlet, URL pattern will be available. So based on the URL pattern, servlet will execute. Same, based on the URL pattern, controller will execute. Which controller should execute? That is identified by handler mapper based on the URL pattern. Are you clear with my point? So whenever we perform some operation, that will be taken care by dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will give the request to handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify controller class to handle the request based on the URL pattern and give controller class details to dispatcher servlet. All right. So you send the request. It received by dispatcher. Dispatcher giving to handler mapper, boss. You tell me which class I have to execute for this request. Handler mapper will go to the project, will identify URL pattern, which class is matching, find out that. Give the details back to dispatcher server. Now look at the diagram. Number 1, request came to dispatcher. Number 2, request went to handler mapper. Then what is number 3? Handler mapper will identify the controller, give the controller details back to dispatcher servlet. What is number 4? Who is calling the controller method? Dispatcher only. Controller method will be called by dispatcher only. What is controller? What is controller? Here guys, controllers are user-defined classes. We need to develop, in this entire diagram, we are responsible to develop only controller. The remaining everything will be provided by Spring Web MVC. Controller is our class. It is like a servlet. Take the request, give the response. What is controller? Controllers are Java classes which are used to handle the request. So that means request processing. So it is a login, do the login check. If it is a registration, perform the registration. If it is a logout, perform the logout operation. So based on the demand, we are going to create the controllers. Multiple controllers can be available. In one controller, multiple methods also can be available. Multi-action controller. One controller can perform multiple actions also. Product controller, save product, delete product, update product, retrieve product. In one controller, we can perform multiple operations. Spring controllers are called as multi-action controllers. Spring controllers are called as multi-action control. Are you able to follow me? Right. So can you tell me what is controller? Controllers are Java classes which are used to handle the request. So controllers will take care of request processing. Controllers will take care of the request processing. Controllers, after executing the request, after processing request, controllers will return model and view object to dispatcher server. Controller is executed, controller method. Who will call the controller method? Look at the diagram. Who is calling the controller method? Dispatcher servlet. Then what controller is doing? Controller is executing the request and it is returning model and view component. Model and view component. Here, model means map. Model means map. You know map in the Java. What is a map in the Java? What is the purpose of map? Map is used to store the data in the form of key and value. Similarly, controllers will return data to the dispatcher servlet in the form of model and view. Model is a map which will represent data in the form of key and value. I want to send one employee name, key, value. I want to send one employee data, employee ID, employee data. 1 minute. Once the controller is executed, controller method is executed, controller method will return the data to the dispatcher servlet in the form of model and view object. In the form of model and view object. Model represents the data in the form of key and value. Model, it is a map to represent data in key value. Whatever the data that you want to send to the UI, that data you can send in the form of key and value by using model. Next one, view. It represents view page name. So multiple view pages will be available. Login.html, register.html, home.html, about us.html, contact us.html. Like that, multiple view pages will be available. So when the controller executed, controller will return the data in the form of model and view. Model is a map to represent the data in the key value format. View represents the data. View is nothing but a page name like login page, register page, forgot password page, about us page, contact us page. Like that, multiple pages will be available. Are you guys able to follow me? Right. So tell me, what is a controller? Controllers are Java classes which are used to handle the request. Controllers will take care of request processing. Controllers will take care of the request processing. After processing the request, controllers will return model and view object to the dispatcher server. Controllers will send the model and view object to the dispatcher server. What is the model? Model is a map. It is going to represent the data in the form of key and value. What is the view? View page. It can be a JSP page or it can be a HTML page also. All right. Now look at the diagram. Come on. What are the components available in the WebMVC, guys? What are the components available? Dispatcher servlet is available. Handler mapper is available. Controller is available. What is the dispatcher servlet? Dispatcher servlet is called as a front controller. What is the responsibility of the front controller? Take the request, send the response. But how it will work in the background? Dispatcher servlet will receive the request, will give to handler mapper. What is the responsibility of the handler mapper? Handler mapper is responsible to identify which request should be executed by which controller and give the controller data back to the dispatcher servlet. Then what the dispatcher servlet will do? Go to the controller, call the controller method. Then what controller will do? Execute the logic, send the response back to dispatcher servlet. In which format? Model and view. What is a model and view? Model is nothing but a map. That means in the view page, what data you want to display. send in the form of key and value. Okay. In which view page you want to display the data? Is it a login page or register page or forgot password, contact us, about us, services? Which page you should display as a response? Now, in our website, when I click on contact us page is coming. Contact us is a view page. In that view page, data, my email ID coming, my address is coming, my phone is coming. So this is a map data. Key value, key value, key value. Are you getting my point? So whenever I click on contact us page, one view page is coming. That is a view. One UI page is coming. In that UI page, some data is coming. Data is represented in the form of key and value by using model. That data should display in the which view, that view name also will be given by controller only. Are you clear with my point? So whenever you send a request to the MVC application, your request will be received by dispatcher servlet. That is a front controller. That dispatcher servlet will talk to a handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify this request should be executed by which controller. Give the controller data to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will go to the controller, call the controller method. Controller method will execute the logic. Controller will return model and view object. Model means a data in the form of key and value. View is a logical file. Which view page? What data? Controller will give to dispatcher servlet. Now, dispatcher servlet will talk to a component called view resolver. Dispatcher servlet is a component. We'll talk to a component called view resolver. What is view resolver? Dispatcher is talking to view resolver. View resolver sending the data back to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will give view name. Controller will give the view name, right? Which view should display? Dispatcher will give the view name to view resolver. View resolver will identify where that file is available. So in a project, so I have multiple files. Some images will be available. Some HTML files will be available. Some CSS files will be available. So everything will be organized in the different folders. Where is our view page available in the project location? In the project directory, view pages available. Where those view pages are available will be identified by view resolver. So what is the purpose of this view resolver in the web MVC? What is the purpose of view resolver in the web MVC? It is used to identify view file location. What is that, guys? It is used to identify view file location. So dispatcher servlet will give view name to the view resolver. It will identify the location of the file, give the location to the dispatcher servlet. So the complete work is distributed. Complete work is doing by one person. Is the dispatcher servlet doing everything? It is a teamwork. It is a teamwork. So in the web MVC, there is a team. Who are the team members? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, view resolver, view component. So there are multiple people are involved. Multiple classes are involved. A teamwork is available. So same thing. When you are doing the project also, one person cannot do everything. Today, you attended project class. So what do you observe? Can you develop that project? Today, I have explained one mini project in the JRTP. Can you guys develop that project on your own? Login registration, everybody will do. That is common example in the Amirpet. The remaining. So you need to learn that concept. How to develop a complete project. Okay. So in the training, you are going to do that project on your own to learn the concept. But once you go to the company, team will be available. You need to do a teamwork. You need to understand how to collaborate with the team. So multiple people will work in the project. Code integration, code testing, code deployment, code review, logging, log monitoring, unit testing. N number of things will be available. Code deployment, code delivery. So a complete SDLC process you should do. Project development is very important. And most of the people problem, they are not able to understand the database designs. How many tables? So today morning, I think 140, 130 people joined. I'm sure 120 plus people don't know how many tables we need to take for that project. What are the mini project I have shown today morning in the project class? 120 plus people don't know how many tables we need to take for that project. How many classes we need to take? How many methods we need to take? What parameters we need to take? What return types we need to take for the method? People don't know. But all people are completed Java training. Core Java completed, advanced Java completed, half of the Spring Boot also complete. The problem, practical knowledge is not there. Theoretical knowledge is there. You know what is class. You know what is method. How to create the object. How to create a variable. How to call the method. You know all the concepts of Java. But by using these concepts, you are not able to develop one project. That nothing but practical knowledge is not there. Only theoretical knowledge is there. Doing the course is one part. Developing the project is another. First, you need to complete the course. Then you need to develop the project. So at least you need to develop 3 to 4 projects on your own when you are doing the training. Then you will get the confidence to attend the interviews. But how many of you doing the projects? In every institute, course means login page, registration page, completed. Real-time scenarios, nobody will explain. Because if they explain, students will get lot of doubts. Students will not think. First problem with the students only. Students will not think. Students are completely depends on the trainer. Trainer has to teach everything. How many requirements we can teach? Maximum 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. But tomorrow, do you get the task only on the 10 requirements? Every day new requirement. If I am working in the company for 365 days, minimum to minimum, 100 plus new requirements will be there for the 1 year. So one requirement, 1 week of time. One requirement, 10 days of time. One requirement, only 1 day. Every day new. Every day it is a challenge. So you need to work with your brain, not with your materials. You got my point? So you need to become independent. What is the meaning of independent? Whatever the requirement I have given warning, if you can develop that requirement in 2 hours without taking anybody help, then you are called as an independent developer. Now you question yourself whether you are independent or you are not independent developer. If you can develop that project on your own, you are independent developer. If you cannot develop that project on your own, you need to learn a lot of things. So when I ask in the class, many people told that we can develop, but day after tomorrow we will see whether their analysis is correct or not. I'm not asking to develop the code. I'm asking to analyze the requirement first of all. You got my point? All right. So we are talking about view resolver. Can anyone tell me what is view resolver? It is used to identify view files location. Okay. Dispatcher servlet will give view name to view resolver. Then it will identify view file location and give it back to dispatcher server. View resolver is used to identify view files location. Dispatcher servlet will give the view name to view resolver. Then it will identify the view file location and give it to dispatcher server. Look at the diagram. Flow. Numbers. Up to 7 numbers we understood. First, request is coming, going to dispatcher. Then going to handler mapper. Will identify controller based on the URL pattern. Give the controller to dispatcher. Then dispatcher will go to controller, call the controller method, will execute the logic. Then it will return model and view. What is the model and view? Model means map, key value pair. U means file name, logical file name, the view file, presentation file. Then dispatcher will give the view file to view resolver. Then what view resolver will do? Identify the file location, give the file location to dispatcher server. You got the clarity? Then finally, dispatcher servlet will talk to view component. Dispatcher servlet will talk to view component. Why it is talking to view component? View component will prepare final response. That means model data is available, view file is available. This model data should be displayed on the view file. That is called data rendering. Model data will be rendered. Rendered nothing but a process, nothing but a display. That model data will be rendered on the view file by using view component. Dispatcher servlet will give model data, view file location to the view component. Then view component will render that model data on your view page. Your HTML page will be prepared by the view component. Your response page will be prepared by the view component. Then it will give to dispatcher. Dispatcher will send that as a final response to you. So now when I am going here and when I click on about us, when I click on about us, then what happened? Request went to dispatcher. Dispatcher talked to handler mapper. Handler mapper identified controller. Dispatcher executed controller. Controller sent model and view. Then dispatcher will give the view name to view resolver. It identified the location. Then it gives the location to dispatcher. Then dispatcher will give the model data plus view location to view component. Then model data will be rendered on the view. Final HTML page will be prepared by view component. That final HTML will be given as a response to dispatcher. Dispatcher sending final response back to the user. So this is Spring Web MVC architecture. And we can also say request execution process in the Web MVC. We can also say this as a request execution process in the Spring Web MVC. Are you clear? Yes. Now, can anyone tell me how Spring Web MVC working in the background? Come on. Offline people. Anybody want to tell Spring Web MVC architecture? You understand the architecture, right? Yeah. Can anyone tell me the architecture? Yeah, stand up. What are the components available? What are those?
Which controllers will handle the request based on the error pattern. It will send the controller class name to the dispatcher server, and then dispatcher server will process the controller class. The controller class is obviously the text. The and after passing the text, it will change that the order the object to the dispatcher server. The data will be clear in the text. It will also send the page name. We don't need to name. Instance of the maybe you will interval the finally, let us talk about the finally. And then finally, what do you need to do? Let's say to exam,
Good guys, clap. Very good. So we understood what is Spring Web MVC architecture, what is the Spring Web MVC architecture, and how a request will be processed in the Spring Web MVC. I'm repeating once again. So in the Spring Web MVC, there are 6 components are very important. One is dispatcher servlet, second one, handler mapping, third one, controller, fourth one, model and view, fifth one, view resolver, Sixth one, view component. Dispatcher servlet is called as front controller. So that is responsible to take the request and send the response. When user send a request, that request will go to dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will give the request to handler mapper. Handler mapper will identify which controller is responsible to handle the request. Then will give the controller data to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will call the controller method. What is controller? Controller is a Java class only which is responsible to handle the request. Controller is also called as request handler. Controller is also called as request handlers. Controller will handle the request and will send the response to the dispatcher servlet in the form of model and view. Model nothing but a map which will represent the data in the form of key and value. Okay, then so in the model key value, view means logical file name will be available. Then dispatcher will give the view name to the view resolver. View resolver will identify where the view components are available. What is the location of the view file? So take the view name as input, give the view location as a output to the dispatcher servlet. Then dispatcher servlet will give that view location and model data to the view component that will do the data processing on the view, which is called the data rendering. Then after rendering the data on the view component, will give to the dispatcher. Dispatcher will send that view as a final response to the client that we are seeing on the website. So when you do some operation in the background, this is the flow that is going to execute. This is called Spring Web MVC architecture. How a request will be processed in the Spring Web MVC. Able to follow this? Now, so can you tell me what is the Spring Web MVC and why we are going for Spring Web MVC now? What is the Spring Web MVC? Why we are going for Spring Web MVC? Spring Web MVC is one of the most used and important module available in the Spring framework. Why we are learning Spring Web MVC module? What we can do? By using this Web MVC module, we can develop two types of applications. What are those two types of applications? You can develop a web application. You can develop a distributed applications also. What is the difference between web application and distributed application, guys? What is the difference between web application and distributed application? Web applications are used for customer to business communication. So what are the layers available in the web application now? Presentation layer, business layer, data access layer. That means Web MVC plus data JP, a combination we are going to develop the project. Okay, then next one. So to develop the Web MVC UI pages, what are the technologies we can use, guys? JSP, Timeleap we can use as presentation technologies here. The next one, what is the distributed application? What is a distributed application? Distributed applications are nothing but web services. They are used to communicate from one application to another application. In distributed applications, UI will be available or UI will not be available. No, these are pure backend APIs. APIs are, we can say, microservices. Right. MVC architecture. What are the components in the MVC architecture? Dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, controller, model and view, view resolver, view component. And dispatcher servlet. What is dispatcher servlet? Predefined class in the Web MVC. It is going to act as a front controller. It is responsible to receive the request and send the response. It is also called as framework servlet. What is the handler mapper? It is also a predefined class in the Web MVC. Responsible to identify controller class to handle the request based on the URL pattern. Give the controller class details to dispatcher servlet. Controllers are called as Java classes which are used to handle the request processing. So dispatcher servlet will call the controller class method. Dispatcher servlet will call controller class methods. After processing the request, controller method will return model and view object to dispatcher servlet. What is a model? It is a map to represent the data in the key value page. What is view? It represents the view page. The next one, view resolver. What is a view resolver? It is used to identify view file location. Dispatcher servlet will give the view name to view resolver. Then it will identify the view file location and give it back to dispatcher servlet. And what is the final component is available? View component. What is the purpose of this view component? It is responsible to render model data on the view file. It is responsible to render model data on the view page and give it to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will send final response to client. Dispatcher servlet will send final response to the client. So this architecture will work only for WebMVC application, guys. When I go for distributed application, architecture is going to change. If you are developing a web application with the UI, then only this architecture. If you are developing a REST API, if you are developing a distributed application, architecture will be modified slightly. Some changes are required in the architecture when you are developing a distributed application. For now, forget about distributed. We are focusing only on the web application development. Able to follow this? Yes. Yeah. Offline people, any questions, anybody? Anybody having any questions? You understand today, it is a theoretical session. What is WebMVC? Why WebMVC? What we can develop with WebMVC? What is web application? What is a distributed application? And we discussed about architecture. So now, once you got the clarity on this architecture, then we can start developing applications by using this architecture. Without having clarity on this architecture, you cannot develop the project. Are you clear with my point? Yes. Any questions, anyone?
We are responsible to develop only controllers.
Yes, we are responsible to develop only these controllers. Remaining everything is predefined. You need to develop only controllers. That's dispatcher servlet, handler mapper, view resolver, view. These all are predefined classes in the WebMVC. As a programmer, we are responsible to develop only controllers plus view pages. HTML pages you can create. Our own. Controllers we develop. Controllers plus view pages we develop. You got the clarity? Yes. So tomorrow we are going to develop this WebMVC application, guys. Tomorrow, August 15th, it is a holiday for the institute. So I will take an online class for us. Okay, tomorrow we are going to learn first WebMVC application development. So I will share the Zoom link tomorrow morning, regular time only. So 9:30 we will have the class and we will develop our first web application by using WebMVC. Okay, good. Any questions, anyone? No questions? Yeah. Online students, anybody having any questions? You can unmute and you can ask me.
So why MVC only, sir? Is there any other way?
Sorry, sir?
Is there any other way to develop? Like earlier we are using, and why MVC only?
This is a standard MVC architecture, sir. We need to follow this architecture. Spring MVC works based on this architecture. You can't modify this.
Okay.
So the flow is same for asynchronous communication also?
The flow is same for web application. If it is a REST API, flow is different. When you go for the REST API, right, here controller will not be available, view resolver will not be available, view will not be available. If I go for REST API, in place of controller, REST controller comes into picture. When you go for REST controller, no view resolver, no view, no model and view. Direct response with the REST control. That's why I don't want to confuse. So first let's understand web application development. Once we learn the web application, then we will go for the REST API development. In the REST API, I will explain the architecture once again according to the REST API development. This architecture is required for the web application development with the UI. If you want to develop without UI only backend, the diagram is different. Got it?
Yes,
Any
sir.
other question, anyone? Where Angular comes into picture. In this flow, Angular will not come into picture. When you go for the REST API, then Angular will come into picture. After 10 days, we will see the full stack. That means you will get the clarity. So what we are going to do with the Spring Boot in the real time. After 10 days, you will get the clear picture. Okay, online students, anyone else having any other questions? Anybody
Hi,
have
sir.
any other
Dilip here.
question?
Can you please let us know the fee structure?
Yeah, sure. I will update in our JRTP group. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, sir. Dilip here.
Yeah. Hi, Dilip.
Actually, I would like to know microservices design pattern also. As part of our portion,
Design patterns is separate. Some design patterns we are going to cover in the course, sir. Complete design pattern separate course is there for.
may I know what design patterns are covered in this
I will share them in the
course?
group, sir. I will share the details in the group.
Oh, okay, sir.
Handler mapper responsible to identify only controller. Controller is responsible to execute the logic. Handler mapper responsible to identify the controller class to execute the request. Controller will execute the actual logic. And controllers will communicate with the service. Service will communicate with the repository. Data JPA will integrate in the web application. Already we completed 50% of the JPA. The remaining 50% we are going to learn along with the combination. If you learn with the combination, then you will get the better clarity. Yesterday, some people sent a message to me. Sir, in the syllabus data JPA, all topics are not covered. What is the reason for not covering? What is the reason for not covering? If you develop with the web application, then you will get better understanding. If I explain the JPA without web application, again in the web application, I have to explain the same topic. So that's why with the combination, we are going to learn the JPA pending concepts. So in the JPA, how to deal with the primary keys, how to work with the composite primary keys, how to work with the connection pooling, how to work with the procedures, how to work with the transaction, how to work with the relationships. So there are so many topics left in the JPA. We are going to learn along with the WebMS. You got it? Today, can you guys develop one web application on your own? Can you develop one web application? Can you do the try? Develop a web application, create one page, one student page, take the student name, email ID, phone number, store in the database. That is the assignment. You try that. You understand the architecture, but I have not developed any application, but you can try. You try to develop an application, take the data and insert the data into database table by using JPA. So how to do that? You try that as a challenge today. Then tomorrow you will understand same thing in the class. You got it? Fine, guys. Thank you. I'm stopping now. We'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a class. Online class is there for tomorrow.